Hi, and welcome to our virtual speaker series for 2020. Behind me is the beautiful Capitol Theatre. It was designed by Walter Burley Griffin and Marion Mahoney Griffin in the 1920s and is considered one of Australia's great architectural treasures. I'm just going to provide you a brief introduction to our 5 speakers today, and then I'll also discuss one of my favourite buildings in Melbourne. Before I do so, I'd just like to make an acknowledgement of country. Our programming exists on what always was and always will be the land of the people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, as well as to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the wider Melbourne community and beyond. Indigenous sovereignty has never been ceded in Australia, and we try to be mindful of that in everything we do, given our particular focus on the modern built environment. Today's speaker series is brought to you by the Architects Registration Board of Victoria, or the ARBV. They have supported this project since its very inception in 2009, and I'd like to sincerely thank them for their ongoing support of us. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank our other sponsors for our program, both large and small, and in particular, the City of Melbourne. So the speaker series, what is it? It's an opportunity for you to hear directly from some of our great design professionals here in Melbourne. They're going to discuss their project, which is constructed. So you get the opportunity to go and see it after hearing their presentation and understand it from a design lens. They'll explain why it is the way it is. They will also then, at the end of their presentation, discuss what their favourite building is by another architect. This is no easy task. And they'd all have numerous architects they could choose from, but we've only allowed them to choose one. The reason this is important is it gives you an insight into what buildings other architects value. And over the last 10 years, we've collected this data, and it's fascinating to see a number of buildings which keep coming to the top of that list. And what this illustrates is that good design transcends time, transcends style, fashion. And this is really important in terms of any of our projects that we deliver today, thinking about this idea of longevity and value to society. This is the list of the 5 speakers we have for you this year, and I'll just go through very briefly and introduce each one of them. Ruth Wilson is a principal and studio leader from Architectus. She has over 30 years experience in Europe and Australia, and is also on the board of 10 Women, a group that empowers women in the construction industry. She'll be talking about the State Library redevelopment. Now, the State Library is one of the most significant buildings in Victoria and was one of the first free public libraries in the world. A fantastic project which allowed the citizens of Melbourne to gain knowledge for free. Jeffery Copolov is a director of Bates Smart. Bates Smart have a history of over 165 years of continuous practice in Australia, and Jeff was was indeed the first interior design director of the practice. He's a gold medal winner, and he's going to be speaking about the Victoria Racing Club stand. This is a really fascinating project in the sense that it re-envisages this typology. Instead of being a single-fronted grandstand that we're traditionally used to, it actually sees the grandstand in the whole and in the round. Anne-Marie Truick from Level Chen will discuss the Old Melbourne Quad redevelopment, a really significant project in the sense that it integrates passive house principles or sustainability principles with the refurbishment and redevelopment of the Old Melbourne Quad. This type of process has incredible significance to society in the sense that our heritage fabric is really important to us culturally, but it needs to be upgraded to ensure that it reduces our carbon footprint. And this project illustrates a way that this could be done through passive house principles. Adrian Stanic has over 25 years experience with Lyons, has won numerous awards for their company throughout this time. He's going to be talking about Prahran Square, which is a fascinating project about a public square which utilises topography to create place, but also interface with streetscapes on all of its frontages. And last but not least, Melissa Bright from Studio Bright will talk about the Ruckers Hill house. Her studio has been slowly growing since its inception in 2006 and has done some delightful projects over this time, and this is certainly one of them. So I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about one of my favourite buildings in Melbourne, the State Government Offices by YUNCKEN FREEMAN. It was designed in 1962 and completed in 1970. The design director was Barry Patton, and it's a fascinating project in terms of this idea of doing a contemporary insertion into a heritage framework and how you can create context through being sympathetic to your surrounding environment. So the design competition that was put forward in 1962 spoke about having the tall tower at the end of the Collins Street axis. Now, at the end of the axis currently is the old Treasury building you can see in this image. It was designed by J.J. Clark when he was at the tender age of just 19 and was built in the 1850s. What YUNCKEN FREEMAN did in their competition entry was to actually move the tower to the north, which you can see here on the left of this slide, so that the heritage building maintained its pride of place at the end of the axis of Collins Street. So if we move around to the north, you can understand their design approach. They've actually put forward three buildings, a lower slung building which matches the height of the Treasury building to the right, the taller administrative building in the centre, and then the low slung chemicals laboratory building to the left. It has a slightly different precast facade to the others, but together their shape and configuration talk to the city in a variety of different ways, and that's what I wanted to discuss with you today. So to the south, the frontage onto the park, you see the consistent parapet line that runs through with the insertion of the new building. It ties together Old Treasury to the left to the other government buildings of the Treasury precinct to the right. And this frontage and the lines that run through, picking up cornice details and so on, really ties together the whole ensemble into one precinct. One of the most, I think, exciting parts of this project is one that isn't often experienced. If you walk out of the taller building, which is to my right, there's an in-between space. And this in-between space lines up exactly on axis with Alkerson House. Now, Alkerson House was designed by A.K. Henderson in the 1930s and was one of the first medium density housing developments in the city. It's an E-shaped plan and of incredible architectural significance to the city. What I find fascinating is the whole composition of the YUNCKEN FREEMAN project responds back to that building. And what it does is it actually brings the power of the A.K. Henderson building back into this site and leverages off that. At the same time, to the left, you'll see the portal frames of the precast facade and the shadow play that happens through that marries into the J.J. Clark Old Treasury building, which has the rustication and the beautiful detailed cornice lines, which are much more ornate, but nevertheless the two play off one another. So this is a building that's using its context and bringing it back in. This is another view from the south. And what you see here is the parapet lines shooting through the taller form of the office administrative building in the background. What I love about this shot is the bird's mouth detail that the taller tower has and also runs across the parapet of that as well. So again, the crafting of the form to create shadow, detail and texture, and how it also then references back to the heritage buildings that surround it. And then finally, in terms of coloration, the sandstone of the Treasury building is then picked up with the reinforced concrete facade of the YUNCKEN FREEMAN project. Now, the YUNCKEN FREEMAN project with its facade was one of the first load-bearing precast facades in Victoria at the time. So it was incredibly innovative. And so for me, that's one of the great things about this project is it talks about how you can have contemporary architecture with design innovation, which ties into the heritage context. It makes sense of the city, it enhances the city, and I think makes a better outcome for all. And this is something that Roy Simpson, one of the directors of YUNCKEN FREEMAN, speaks about in his gold medal address in 1997, the year that he dies. He speaks about the idea that architects should consider doing background buildings, the idea of doing contextual work. And the idea behind that is to allow for the significant few to be seen as great architectural elements in their own right. But this idea of creating city and precinct as being of primary importance in terms of how we construct our built environment. And that's why I think I love this project so much, is this idea of it contributing back to the city. So that's enough from me. I hope you enjoy a fantastic lineup of speakers, and thanks so much for joining us. Keep well, all the very best. Cheers.